was in the 8th grade, they gave us this aptitude inventory. And it was really amazing. They just asked all about your interests, what you liked, what you didn't like. And then the results came back. And mine said that I should be a minister. Now, in the 8th grade, I burst out laughing. And the teacher said, "What are you laughing at?" And I said, "This thing says I should be a minister. This is hilarious." Well, I ended up becoming a minister. What the hell? Were they predicting my Dharma? I don't think so. I don't think so. So today I want to talk about something that's very personal, and I hope that we all get a little personal because it's been a great reflection for me. And that has to do with my purpose. Whether there's many lives or just this one life, what is it that I'm here to learn, to do, to be, to become, and how do I discern that? Now, I'll admit, I went through a lot of my notes. Some say if you can remember the 60s and 70s, you weren't there. Well, I took notes. I took good notes, some of which I cannot read, by the way. Who we are and how we are. I can only tell you this is what I've discovered about myself, and I've known this. You see, I wrote early in my journals, I want to laugh, I want to cry, I want to know the world without the lies. Because by the time I was 8 years old, I realized there was a whole veneer of lies on things. You know, parents don't cuss was one of the ones that I woke up to when I was 8. Another thing I asked early is, how does the world work? And that has been a compelling question in my life forever. And another one is, I really wanted to touch the world and have the world touch me in a most sincere and authentic way. And these are things that I call the upside of discovering who I am supposed to be here, what I'm supposed to learn. And I call that upside the reaching part. But wait a minute. There's this other side, because what we lack may be a clearer indicator of what it is that we need to learn to empower that which has been unpowered, if you will. You see, we can look at the insights and the ups, our hobbies, what we enjoy, what we care about, what matters most, recognizing our strengths and our talents. But there's this other side. I call it the downside or the slap down. This is the part of life that just does you. And then you have to figure, what am I supposed to learn with this? You see, in my life, I've always been a screw-up. I seem to, I've just been a screw-up. And I've learned that you can use the screw-up role to be a learned fool. And I've tried to do that the best I can. But this week, I really looked at the full breadth of my reaching and my slap down, if you will. The two places I think we have to look at honestly for a clue to our Dharma, to our own personal purpose. And when I keep digging down, I find that what I lack is trust. I don't have a lot of friends because I don't trust people. I don't trust the institutions. I don't trust my dentist. I go to my dentist and I want to get a second opinion right away. It's just, and I won't, but it's just a part of me that I have to admit, and it's very difficult because the friends I do have, I feel very dear with, but I don't trust very much. And so when it all comes down to it, I see this life as really a place to learn to trust. And I'm trying. As you get old and you go into a hospital or your dispensary or a doctor, you kind of have to leave your dignity at the door and be open. I call it the Islam experience, which means to submit. You just have to submit to the system. I'm learning. But it's huge for me. It's huge. And I thank God for Edie, and I thank God for Bob and Mary Ann, because they're people I do trust and I love. I thank God for my family, because I've learned to trust them. And I just don't. So for me, it's a trust issue that is a really deep part of my own Dharma and what I'm here to learn. And again, it comes out of an upside, the reaching, and a downside, the slap down. over and over, I wanted to do stuff, and when I've tried, I've screwed it up, or the system was so unaccommodating that it wouldn't let me in. And so, how is it that I can build trust, that I can grow trust? And I'm really serious about this piece in my life of wanting to trust more. I've never really belonged to clubs very well, although I was a Rotarian for a while, but I didn't trust any of those guys anyway. I always thought they were there for an ulterior motive. And so here I am. I'm kind of bearing my soul, finding our purpose and how we do that. Bob, I'll go to you first. How do you see your purpose, and how do you discern it?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about it this week, and it's not an easy question to answer. I think that I agree with some of the things you said about our needing to be learning all the time. I really believe that that's sort of all of our purposes. The reason we're here is to learn and to do something better with what we're learning.
Yeah, it's almost like a universal constant, consciousness constant.
Yeah, but my big problem throughout my whole life has been lack of patience, and I think that assuming that we're here on multiple lives, and each life we're learning different things, whatever. I think that this particular life has been to teach me patience, and it's been a struggle. It's still a struggle because I tend to see certain patterns or relationships that seem so self-evident to me, and nobody else seems to see those. And it tortured me through my whole career. We would have a task, some kind of question that my research group was trying to answer, and we'd focus in on that question, and then everybody else on the team would be going off in 20 different directions, and I couldn't keep them focused on the task at hand, and it just drove me crazy. And then that would alienate me from people. They would keep saying, "Oh, we appreciate your passion, but you're too focused on it. You don't." I don't know if this is the term they use, but you don't suffer fools gladly. Yeah. And I just kept coming back to, well, why are we here? We're not here to have a birthday cake. We're not here to have a rummage sale. We're here to do research on this particular topic, and we've been given this budget to do it, this timeline, and we should be focused on that. And
few people think that way, Bob.
I'm learning that, and I'm not very patient with people who don't think that way, and that's a real problem because most people don't think that way. So it's been a trying experience, and I really think that's the thing that I really have been put here to learn more than anything else, and that's patience. I think trust is a big one too.
Yeah. How about you, Marianne? It's a big question,
It is a huge question, and I, like Bob, have been thinking, and you have been thinking about this all week, and, I think that to try to figure out what we're here for, and I have a really hard time separating what I think my purpose is with what I think everyone else's purpose is. And I think that, yes, we are here to learn something. I'm here to learn something. And I don't think we're all here to learn the same thing, which is why we need each other. And so when you're talking about what it is you've got down, you've got focus, you've got wonder, you've got whatever it is that I don't have, that brings my purpose is to learn from the connections that I make, to figure out, in my life, I have always been wondering. I remember sitting in a tree as a kid, looking up at the sky, thinking, what is this all about? Why are we here? I mean, just from a very young age. And then when my life experiences talk about being frustrated, My life experiences took me down this road of really having to face mortality, really having to face how quickly people come and go in this world, how short life can be. And so my purpose always seemed to be something external. Okay, my purpose is to study. My purpose is to raise my kids. My purpose is to deal with death of my family members. My purpose is to make a difference in the world. Something that was always outside of me. And that's what kept me going. But I had to also go to that internal place of, okay, this can't be what it's all about. It can't just be about you're here and then you're gone. Because I think that for me, what I'm trying to learn, and trust is huge. I think that is like one of the biggest things. Are we able to trust other people? I don't think so, because people will always let you down. But I think we can trust the connections. We can trust that other people are also struggling with the same things that we're struggling with, but maybe in a different format. And so I think that for me right now, my purpose, or my meaning, purpose is just a really hard word for me to use. I think the meaning that I'm looking for right now is, what can I contribute to the world that is going to make the connections of, when my daughter died and when my son died, I looked around and saw the people they touched. I saw the impact their lives had on people that were casual acquaintances, and people that maybe never knew them personally, but knew their story. And those stories live on. And the things that happened in my life, right now I'm struggling with, what do I do with all of this? And there's a part of me that thinks that I don't want to squander all of these experiences. I want to use them in order to make more connections in the world. And so how do I do that? So that's my purpose right now. But that trust piece, I think there has to be a different kind of trust, where we have to trust that there's something else outside of us that is guiding, and that is bigger than us, bigger than the disappointments when other people let you down, bigger than the disappointment when somebody dies, bigger than the disappointment of not achieving what it is I wanted to achieve by the time I get to this age, right? So how do you keep going in all of that? And I think we just have to keep creating new meanings and new purposes. My whole thing right now is learning motivation. That's my lesson for this year, is motivation. I have to find it.
Well, and as we get older, that becomes more difficult, I think, because, the whole concept of a householder leaving the household for a life of reflection, I think that's a very important part of life. And the three of us are coming into that as gangbusters. I think as you were talking about connection and my penchant to want to touch the world and be touched by it, and I think of all the hands I held in their last days. I think of all the weddings I've performed, and for every wedding there's 2 funerals, so the funeral ratio is always double what the wedding is. And then there's baptisms, there's births, there's places where I've gotten to be where people are hurting and where people are experiencing great joy. And it's real and authentic and universal. And that's something that I feel many people don't see it around them. Bob, and when you're talking about a meeting, you represent about 15% of the perspective in terms of the way group processes work and the different motivating factors in a group. Some are there to put somebody down. Some are there to, it becomes a big Rorschach test, a projection event.
And it's almost impossible, if not impossible, to ever understand what is really motivating someone else.
That's
because
right.
you haven't experienced what they've experienced. And I think I shudder to even say this because I'm going to quote Ronald Reagan, which is just so out of character for me. But his phrase, trust and verify, kind of always rung true to me. You can trust people, but at the same time, you don't have to put yourself in a position vis-a-vis that other person where they can do you harm.
Yeah.
Well, and I think you have to learn to trust yourself. I mean, I think that is the biggest obstacle is when you can learn to trust yourself, that's when you can learn, then you trust your instincts about other people.
Mm-hmm.
And, for me, it's trusting my paradigms, which are what connect me. They're those mediational grids that, everything from language to facial expressions to all kinds of subtle...
Well, those are the patterns that I was talking about that I seem to have been able to see even when I was a child and when I was going to Sunday school. And they would teach us about the Beatitudes, or they would teach us about the Golden Rule. And it just seemed so simple. And I could not understand why everybody else had to make it so complex.
Well, and
I still don't to this day understand.
Well, when you figure that out, let us know.
Well, you're just at home. You're at home in your own house of mirrors. A lot of people aren't. I want us to go back to something here for our listeners as well as for ourselves, and that's to talk about this two-pronged idea I have that there's an upside and a downside to where we look to find our purpose. It's in many things that I did not choose that helped me see my purpose. It's in many things that I did choose that helped me find my purpose. And I think my purpose really is, I'm a contemplative. As I grow older, my contemplations tend towards suffering and pain because I'm hurting a lot. And what did Jung say? There's no growth of consciousness without pain, which really sucks. But I'm starting to understand that in a way that as a young person feeling almost invulnerable, I never could have. So the vulnerability of old age is bringing me closer to the lesson that is deeper in my heart, which has to do with trust. And I do believe we can trust people. I trust my wife. I trust my kids. And that doesn't mean they won't let me down, but it also means that if they do, I'll get over that and I'll continue to trust them. I'll regrow that trust in a recalibrated and hopefully new order of understanding. And if anybody who's had kids that went through adolescence, you need to find some new orders of understanding as you grow. I mean, Edie and I had to sit down and say, okay, we're not going to let 4-letter words come between our relationship with our son. So we just let him go on that front and it became a non-issue for us. And so we're always growing. We're always finding, and I love the word you use often, Marianne, and that's connection. Because I think I want to trust my connections. And my primary connections are one that, I think we're testing out all the time. But I can't imagine not having two friends like you or the family I have and not being able to bare my soul and know if I'm a complete screw up in this, you guys won't disclude me, kick me out of the club, if you will. So I think that again, I want people to see that there's a way for them to discern, and that way is, and I'm just trying to give something to hang stuff on, if you will, by coming up with this upside and downside, or the reaching and the slap down.
Well, it gets back to my favorite term, which is balance. And everything we encounter, if there's one thing I've learned in this journey, everything that we do has to be balanced, or we will spin out and suffer for it. And that has to do with feelings. It has to do with actions. It has to do with thoughts. We have to constantly think of what is the counter argument to whatever it is we're thinking about or acting on, and see how that balances it out. Because we've seen it everywhere, whether it's the balance of the nucleus of an atom with the electrons cloud around it, or whether it's the balance of positive and negative forces in electricity, whether it's the balance of social forces. It's always there, and that is the thing that I have learned most about the universe around me as I've moved through it in this unique path that I've had. And that is that we have to learn to balance ourselves.
Well, and as you were talking, the word that came to my mind was buoyancy. That between the reaching and the slap down, every time life slapped me down, I've had to develop a new understanding of my own reaching and come to it a different way. When I got into the service, because I was afraid I was getting drafted, I went, I can't, this is not going to work for 4 years. I got to find a way out of this. And I did. I tie-dyed my uniforms and stood an inspection for General Westmoreland. And believe me, they didn't want me in that line anymore. The point is...
I painted my shoes silver.
Yeah, did you? That's great. I think that the whole point here, though, is that we're always... That balance piece comes with how we learn trust, how we learn our Dharma. That, I know so many people who think they're old souls. It's like, well, if you're an old soul, this and this. And the older I get, the less I believe I'm an old soul. The more I think it's like maybe I'm middle-aged at the very best, but it feels like I'm pretty stupid as a soul. And I think that's... There's this piece of wisdom in us, whether no matter how old your soul is, that is trying to reap itself. Marianne, when you talked about trust in yourself, I think that's our trust in the world is always predicated in our ability to trust ourselves, so that the two have to be somehow interchanged. Balance, that's right.
Exactly. Well, and I think, one thing that we haven't really talked about here is the fear factor that creeps in when we're trying to figure out what is our purpose, and what is it that our unique life, whether or not we've had other lives or not, what is this unique life asking from us? What does it want us to do? What are these circumstances that are unique to my life, that I was born in the I hate calling it the Midwest, it's more the Northeast, but, in this time, in this country, at this place, with these siblings, with these parents, and then all the things that have happened after that, where does that all lead? I mean, it's something that I think is a lifelong process of us trying to, and I love your term focus, Bob, because if we can focus on what it is that our Dharma, or what it is that we're trying to do, we're going to get there. And that's where trust comes in. And sometimes we get there by very, very crazy routes. Right? You have to not do something to figure out what it is you should be doing, right? And the thing, though, and as I get older, that becomes more and more apparent is we don't have forever. And so how do you accelerate this? I feel like, oh my gosh, I want to accelerate it. And yet, at the same time, that again, it goes back to trusting I am in the right spot for where I need to be, for what it is that I'm supposed to learn in this.
It's the only spot you've got.
It's the only spot I've got, and it's a great one. It really is. When you can look at all the other things that could be your life, right? But I don't know.
And I want to bring, we're running a little low on time, but I want to bring one thing out that I think is important that you said, Marianne, and that's that sometimes we have to do not me in order to find me. I was a Rotarian for almost 20 years. Believe me, that is not me. And when I was asked to be a Rotarian, when I prayed on it, the response I got was, you got to do not you in order to find you. And that's a great place to do it. And I learned so much. I learned more about how to get into the community and do stuff, because when I had ideas, they give me money to go do it. And it was an amazing thing. I learned more about me by doing not me than I ever could have said. And I think that's an important piece for us to realize, that in finding ourselves, we have to wander away from who we are, sometimes in ways with high contrast, in order to move on. We're at our up against the end of our podcast. Marianne, final comments on your purpose, your Dharma. Take this personally.
Well, I think my purpose, I would rather say meaning. My meaning for my life is to grow and to learn and to, now I'm at a point where I want to share what I've learned, and I want to reach out to others. I want to meaningfully connect with other people that are like we do here. Just the idea that there are others who are on this same journey, and I want to devote more time to figuring out, when I do leave, what was it that I take with me?
Yeah. And, I'll be honest, the stuff I'm reading on reincarnation, what great souls your children were to come here to teach you something. And I don't know what that is. They've taught me a lot about you as a human being, and resilience and fortitude and all that. So I think that over and over, I hope we never come up with a final answer and believe this is it. So
there is no final answer.
Yeah. Bob, final comments?
Well, as I get older, and I'm the oldest of the three of us, so I can speak as the elder statesman. The journey becomes more and more to resemble the search. And I've been searching through my whole life, and I think everyone is searching in their own way through their own lives. And I know there's no final answer. I know that it's important to keep searching and to find little signposts along the way that can help you in your own search, and that you can share with other people in their searches. And it's been such a pleasure for me to participate in the deep end, because it's allowed me to come out of my little cave where I was sitting as a contemplative monk at the last stages of my life, and kick around the ideas that have been so important throughout my whole life. Even though I've never come to any definitive answers about them, it's still, the search goes on.
Amen. Amen. And I pray it does go on, because we're going to go on. It's the way we look at each other, the way we connect, all of that comes through, I mentioned this a little bit during the podcast, comes through these mediational systems, these models, language, myths, paradigms, all these different things that facilitate consciousness. And I think that that's what we're really talking about here, because for me, something is going on with consciousness that is elusive and elusive. It's just outside our ability to give any formation to it. It's the morning sun with all the colors, but yet the sun has not risen, and we know that there's a light coming. That's what consciousness feels like to me. And if you followed our metaphysics, you see that being moves to life, and now consciousness. And what we did today was try to say, what is my individual consciousness doing? What is life doing to me? Next week, we're going to talk about what gets in the way, and that's fear. What is this fear that gets in the way? What is the real substance of fear? How can we talk about it? How can we not do battle with it, but judo, use it, forces of its own making against it, that we might pass through it, over it? Fear. We wish you a great week. May the oneness of all being be all over you, and in all cases, may the joy of each breath touch you.